The leadership style we often think of when we think of a leader is actually only one of 4 main types, and it's not always the best leadership style for every room. There are certain situations that it is the right leadership style for, but there's many that it actually isn't. And the problem is when you try to lead from a leadership style that isn't your own, it's actually quite exhausting. And this is where imposter syndrome can kind of start to creep in, because you're not actually aware of what makes you unique. And when you're leading in a way that doesn't feel natural and it kind of feels a bit forced, or you're kind of faking it till you make it, that's, essentially imposter syndrome. Because when you get really clear on what makes you unique, then there's just no room for imposter syndrome, because you realize that there's no one else that can lead like you. And the problem is when you don't actually know your own leadership style, then a lot of the leadership advice you hear, you may think you need to do more of, but it's actually making the situation worse, because it's the exact thing that is the opposite to your strength, or it's the exact thing that is the opposite to what makes you a great leader. And when you actually understand your leadership style, you can kind of just filter out all that advice that really is probably for different leadership styles anyway. And so the 4 main types, these are main types, there's like many subtypes within them. The 4 main types are visionary, pioneer, architect, and diplomat. And these are based off an evidence-backed personality profile or DISC assessment, which I'm actually certified in. But I find this a lot better way of actually relating to and understanding the main 4 leadership types. So the visionary is, as it sounds, they're the big thinker, they're the dreamer, they think of the possibilities. They are really great at inspiring people. I am mostly a visionary, as you may hear from some of my language, because us visionaries, we talk about possibilities and potential. We always have so many dreams, so many ideas. But the problem is then often trying to figure out which idea we want to focus on, because we often want to focus on all the ideas all at once to achieve the big vision as soon as possible. And the idea of actually having to methodically step through repetitive tasks to get to that big vision can wear us down, and we lose the spark and lose the motivation. And so it takes a visionary a lot of discipline, or even outsourcing, right, to really make sure each step is executed properly and followed through on, as opposed to stuck in la la land, really. But why visionaries make such good leaders is that they see things, they see opportunities that other people don't often see. And so often these are entrepreneurs, because everyone's breezed past something, and it's almost like they see something that no one else sees. Or they can really take a half-baked idea and turn it into a goal, into a vision, and really understand it on a level they don't have to see. They don't need tangible evidence that something is going to work out to believe that it will work out. And they're really good at bringing people along with them on that vision. Some famous examples, and of course these famous examples aren't, like, I don't know for sure what their DISC personality profile is, but they fit the best with the common characteristics. So one of the famous visionaries is, of course, Richard Branson. Entrepreneur, visionary, playful, fun, inspiring. Walt Disney is another one. He's an imaginative creator with an inspiring vision. Simon Sinek is also another one. He's a very visionary-led founder. But the shadow side, or the problem that a lot of visionaries can run into, which I know I have myself, is you think of too many ideas at once and you want to do all of them all at the same time. Or you need to be planning this week, but you're thinking about the 2-year vision. You're thinking about the multi-million-dollar exit and you haven't even gotten to proof of concept. Or you're thinking, if you're working within a company, how great the team could be, but the team is underperforming. And so you actually need to get quite tactical and specific, as opposed to constant, ambiguous, inspiring but vague visions. Visionaries have a bit of a shiny object syndrome, and because they can tip over into charlatan because visionaries do genuinely believe that the vision is possible, and so they can overpromise and underdeliver, not on purpose, but just because that vision is so tangible to them. Yet when it actually comes to the execution, it's not as exciting to follow through on. And so visionaries work really well with some of the other leadership styles, which I'll get to, such as archetype. These are almost polar opposite, because where a visionary really needs to make sure they either focus on themselves or outsource to is that execution and follow through. And so next is the pioneer, and the pioneer is the traditional leadership type. And no shade on the pioneer. Pioneers, I have actually many friends who are pioneers. The pioneers are great. As a visionary, we're both quite fast-paced in our thinking. And they are the traditional leadership type, right? Because the pioneer is, the one that's leading the army, the one that is leading the Industrial Revolution. It's the one that is just like, yep, let's go. We need to get this done. Because they're bold, decisive, action-orientated. They're driven by results and they're confident under pressure. Pioneers can handle pressure really well. Actually, they often thrive under pressure. And also, as I'm going through these, there's certain industries where certain leadership types are going to thrive the most, but in almost every industry, there's different types of teams anyway. So, for example, in a startup company, that might be, the CEO might be a visionary. At other layers within the company, you still need a pioneer to make sure things get done, or any of these other leadership styles that I'll get to bring people together, make sure the systems and processes are in place. And so the great thing about being a pioneer as a leader, or why pioneers make such great leaders, is like I said, you handle high stakes really well, you handle pressure really well, and you don't freeze under pressure. You can be quite decisive, and you even bring people along by taking that action. Whereas a visionary, they bring people along with inspiration and excitement. Pioneers really bring people along because they're like, this is the path, this is where we're going, and people are like, yep, I'm coming with you, this is what's happening. And pioneers don't wait for permission, they don't wait to be picked, they just go, they just do it, they just do what needs to be done. But the flip side of that, of course, is they can speed ahead a bit too fast and leave people in the dust. And particularly, they are under a bit of pressure, then they have that natural inclination to just be like, hey, let's just make a decision. Let's just do this. When sometimes things actually need not a quick decision. There needs to be a bit more of a calculated plan and thought through, as opposed to just doing what needs to be done as fast as possible. Famous examples of the pioneer are Elon Musk, relentless drive, ambitious goals. Sarah Blakely, she's a resilient entrepreneur with strong initiative. Gordon Ramsay is another one, right? He's got high standards, direct communication. Pioneers are very direct. And so when they go to the shadow side, when they're over you, when the pioneer is out of balance, then it can shift into the dictator, impatient with slower decision makers, overly controlling or domineering. Often when we think of an assertive leader, we're actually thinking of a pioneer. But when we're thinking of an assertive leader that is also dominating, then they've flipped over into the dictator, the shadow side of being a pioneer. The next is the architect, and the architect is very analytical, logical, methodical, process thinking. They're really good at systems thinking. They're really good at the data. They're really good at strategically sorting through data and not only seeking clarity, but actually finding clarity and getting really precise on things. They are reliable. They are consistent. That's why me as a visionary, I really like having architects on my team, because they are consistent and reliable, whereas I can be very inconsistent depending on what the most exciting vision is. Whereas if I give a architect a task, or if I work alongside an architect, They're really good at keeping that consistent rhythm and also making decisions based on facts and evidence. Again, I'm all about intuitive decision making, but sometimes there's many things in the modern world, accounting, law, legal, HR, where you really need the facts and evidence, and architects are really good at gathering that evidence and making decisions based on that evidence. And they make such great leaders because they can look at a whole system and see where it's going to fail before it fails, and then figure out how actually, based on evidence and data, to fix the system or to reinforce the system. And they're really good at building things properly and slowly, while the visionaries and pioneers are already speeding ahead, and there's, things are not working, or they're broken, or they're just not as efficient as they could be because they've already jumped ahead, which is really great to make the most opportunities. Architects are actually building it properly and slowly, really foundationally, so things are solid, so things work, they can scale really sustainably. And I trust architects with tasks. Like, they will, not only will they do the task that they've been delegated, they will make sure that all the other information in relation to that task has been considered. So it is very, very comprehensive. And so as a leader that they have considered all angles. Famous examples are Bill Gates, analytical thinker and systems approach. Warren Buffett is another one, right? So patient, analytical, evidence-based in decision making. So anything that requires not just Warren Buffett, but for the architect, right? The architect's really good at making decisions in environments such as finance, where emotions can get in the way, but you actually need to make decisions that are not emotional. But the problem with the architect is they can actually overanalyze and get too stuck in the detail and need so much information to make a decision that they actually just don't make a decision and miss out on opportunities and things because they're not certain enough. And so the architect needs a bit more of that just do it anyway. Willing to step into the uncertainty, which they can really get from the visionary and pioneer, right? These opposites match, as opposed to hesitating to actually just take that step forward, as opposed to always getting stuck in the detail, just zooming out a little bit because oftentimes an architect may start here but then go off this way following the little details, and it's actually zoom out and realize that all that over there isn't even necessary. When the architect flips into the shadow side, they become the interrogator, right? Interrogating the data, interrogating people, needing more information when it's actually they've got enough, it's okay. They don't need to be so anxious about what's going to happen, just willing to accept that they don't know everything. And then the fourth style, and definitely not the least, is the diplomat. They are calm, they are dependable, they are patient, supportive, everyone likes the diplomat on the team. They are so understanding and great to be around, and it's not even like they're trying. It's not even unnatural for them, right? They're just really warm, kind people that really consider everyone, and they're really great at making sure everyone's brought along on the journey, everyone's included in the team. They're very loyal and trustworthy, and they're great as leaders because they really, seek to develop other people. They can walk into a room where, two sides are fractured, but both sides still trust them. They're great mediators. They're great connectors. And then famous examples of the diplomat are Michelle Obama, supportive, authentic, relationship-orientated. Keanu Reeves is another one, recognized for his humility, kindness, and quiet consistency. The shadow side of the diplomat is the martyr. They avoid conflict, find it difficult to say no, prioritize other people's needs over theirs. The classic people pleaser, right? Can prefer comfort over growth, so can get in the habit of staying in bad situations because it's not that bad, or it's more, the classic saying for a diplomat is better the devil you know. And the shadow side of the diplomat is being afraid to disappoint people, being afraid to hurt them in any way by giving that negative feedback, by making a decision that isn't beneficial to everyone. And so often the diplomat will try to get agreement from people before even making a decision, when sometimes you've got to be the one, particularly as the leader, that's just got to decide. And this is where the diplomat and the pioneer are opposite in a lot of ways. The pioneer can learn a lot from the diplomat around being patient with people, hearing what they have to say, bringing them in, whereas the diplomat can learn a lot from the pioneer, where sometimes you just got to be harsh, you got to be direct, and you just got to make the decision and not be so caught up in the emotions of it. And so now, the only thing missing is figuring out your specific leadership style. And so to do that, you can take my free quiz to find out which of these 4 leadership styles you are. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.